Audica.
Audica, A-U-D-I-C-A.
Yes.
And we have the exclusive reveal of this, Miller?
We did, yeah. Harmonix reached out to us and they wanted to talk to us about the game and let us play it, let us talk to Alex, who is acting, by the way, as creative director on this project. He's not just like Harmonix spokesperson. He's in the lead on this particular project.
It's always exciting when like, the head of a studio comes back in like, I'm going to direct this one, actually.
Totally. I think the recent changes that of how they organize things at Harmonix have given him the flexibility to step back into a role where he's more involved in development directly, which is awesome. I'll tell you this about Audica. Okay, well, first of all, if nobody's seen it yet, or if people have not seen it yet, it's a VR music shooter.
Yes.
It's like a hybrid. So shoot targets, but there's music involved.
Got it.
Playing it, for me, was very reminiscent of the first time I played Guitar Hero. Because...
Okay. Go on.
Because when I first played that game, I remember, not unlike the situation with Audica, Harmonix brought us Guitar Hero long before they went public with it. We were one of the first places that actually wrote a preview about it.
Yeah.
And they'd shown up at our office with this silly looking little toy guitar with red plastic buttons on it. And we're like, hey, this is the new game we're doing. And I think, I had been a fan of Amplitude and
the better game Frequency.
The game you think is better. Uh-huh. And I was like, oh, sweet, Harmonix is doing a new game. And at first glance, like most people, I saw Guitar Hero and was like, seriously, a little toy guitar?
It was a little rude of you to smash the guitar.
It was, maybe. But I remember playing it and in just a few minutes of play, you were like, oh man, this is amazing. And how has this not been made?
Right.
Likewise, the first few minutes for me playing Audica had that same quality where I was, you're kind of dual wielding these energy pistols in a futuristic environment and shooting these targets that are coming at you in what I think is being kind of almost like reverse skeet shooting. Like there's targets that are coming in at you rather than going away from you.
The original name was Skeet Beats.
I have a very maybe quick like way to define it. To me, it's like Elite Beat Agents VR. Because you have the circles closing in, it's about target practice, and you even have the ones where you drag along the side. It's like playing...
That's interesting. It's not so much closing in here as it is they're flying off the screen.
Yeah, yeah.
For me, I had a different way of looking at it, which is like, oh, this is Beat Saber, but instead of lightsabers, you have guns.
Yeah. I think it certainly has a lot of similarities to Audio Shield and Beat Saber. I mean, the actual just appearance of the arena space that you're in being this sort of like darkened futuristic space and the things that are coming flying at you. But I would argue, much as I like both of those games, I think that what Harmonix is trying to do here has the potential to be a little bit more sophisticated and complicated. And I don't know if that's going to make it more popular or not, but it just has a lot of depth to it because you're combining a lot of different things that you're having to learn.
Yeah.
And like Rock Band, you start out and you play on the easy settings and it's like, oh, okay, I get this. I'm going to shoot here and I'm going to shoot there and then I'm going to drag here. And over time, as it layers on the different difficulty settings, it gets way deep, way complicated. It really requires, like Rock Band and Guitar Hero before it, requires you drop into that kind of like trance-like state where your eyes are kind of unfocused and you're just kind of like going with the flow.
I walked by the VR room and you were certainly in some kind of state in there, Mel.
I know.
I'm still not over how dorky people look when I walk by that room and glance
so terrible.
But I'm totally with you. At first, like playing on easy, it's like, okay, you shoot the things, got it. It like recommends strongly that you keep a stiff arm and like look down the gun, and that's totally necessary because accuracy gives you higher points and stuff like that. But then when you get used to those basics, where it becomes really fun is when it becomes so much more active and you're moving in different ways. Like you're holding one line and the gun basically becomes, the gun from Ghostbusters. It's like zzz, as it's like going across the environment. Meanwhile, like a new target's opening up on the other side of the field. So as you're holding this gun down and it's going zzz, and there's sparks flying everywhere, then you have to aim with this hand real quick and then shoot that as then just in the nick of time, you're bashing this little circle that's coming towards you. As I think you wrote in your preview, it's like the choreography. Once you start to feel the flow of even the choreography, it really pops, I think.
Yeah, the comparison or the like meeting point I talked about in my preview is like it's like half a game about being a like pulp sci-fi ray gun shooter, and half a game about being like a dude on ecstasy at a rave.
Right.
Like
Everybody's pitch.
It somehow manages to get the meeting point between those two, and it's hard. Like, it's hard to get good at it. The higher difficulty settings will be impenetrable for a while for a lot of people. It's also very physical. I mean, I think you'll get tired playing this game, especially on the higher difficulty settings, both physically and mentally, because there's like a lot coming at you.
Emotionally,
spiritually, maybe.
Did you like playing it, Kyle?
Yeah, I did. It's almost I was talking to Miller about it a little beforehand. Like, my favorite rhythm games actually simplify things a lot.
Yeah.
Like, I might like Rhythm Heaven. Like, I love that it's just one input generally, and then even Beat Saber is like very simple. So I'm a little turned off by the amount of because you got to go hold gun sideways, you got right side up, you got hold down, you've got the disco balls coming at you that you have to smash. But it is so satisfying to just hit the targets like with the music, and that's like I actually hope there's a mode in the future that just keeps it to firing on targets, even if there are more targets on screen.
Oh, interesting.
It would just let you focus a little more on the music, and rather than like how you need to angle your hands and stuff like that. But yeah, like it feels really good, especially for those that League of Legends KDA song is one of the ones that
League of Legends.
Yeah, there's that League of Legends music video.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that I think the band's called KDA.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about, right, Hanson?
Yeah, I think it sounds familiar. Actually,
it's got like 400 million views.
I think we talked
YouTube.
about it on the podcast before. Yeah.
Like, that song is really good because it's a lot of like bang, 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 bang. Like, that's how the rhythm goes. It pops like that, like in consecutive like quarter notes, and like to shoot targets in rhythm with that song feels really good. Like, I like that a lot.
Some songs really pop. I love that it's mainly like a techno focus. I think it's Harmonix at their best. But the song Gold Dust by DJ Fresh was my favorite out of that batch, where it does just feel more active. That's where I felt like, it's clicked over now.
Does that have like the high score sound effects? Is that?
I know the one you're talking about.
I like that one a lot too.
It is basically an all electronic soundtrack. Harmonix. I mean, this is the other thing about Harmonix, is that like a lot of those guys are musicians before they were game developers, and they're great game developers, but they bring an understanding and appreciation to music that has always opened my eyes to new tunes in every game that I've ever played from them.
Yeah, I know you are humming Freeze Pop songs throughout the office so often.
Honestly, I fell in love with Freeze Pop because of playing it in Harmonix.
Look,
games,
everyone loves Freeze Pop. I'm surprised actually there's no Freeze Pop songs in here. At least one.
It's an outrage.
It'd be amazing if they put a Freeze Pop song in. I don't know are they still making new stuff? I'm not
sure. That's a great question.
I mean, we're all the biggest Freeze Pop fans in the world. I don't know why we're not following this group.
But I will say that like doing that before in Rock Band and Guitar Hero and other games, they are bringing in artists that are very high profile in the electronic music scene, but they're also bringing in folks who they know are really good because they know music really well, and sort of, I think, introducing those high talent people to the world. At least that's the way they describe their approach. And then there's going to be a few sort of what they call friends and family Harmonix stuff on there.
Right.
Which is kind of how the Freeze Pop stuff started.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're connected to the studio. So it's launching early access on Oculus Store March 7th. Is that the date? Yeah.
Yeah, supposedly it's going to be available to play on the Vive or the Rift in early access on March 7th. They've told me that it's going to come out in 2019 in full. But the early access version, I think they've said, is going to be $20. It's out on March 7th. You can play 10 songs in that build. And of course, those 10 songs have the multiple difficulty settings, so you can really start to dig into the meat of how to play.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be a very solid release, and something that if you have one of those VR headsets, should definitely be on your radar.
I'm sure they'll be bringing it to PSVR at some point.
It is a testament to stripping out any of the music stuff, the reality of it being like such a skill-based game that is going to require a lot of practice and a lot of energy to get good at, like some of Harmonix's previous music games. That's relatively novel still within the VR space. A lot of VR stuff is it's like easy, right? It's like it doesn't take a lot of skill to get good at a lot of the VR games that are out on the market. not to say anything bad about them per se. It's just that they're, you know, they're trying to skew towards just ease of accessibility. And
yeah, I mean, it's telling that Steam updated its VR platform recently because people were playing Beat Saber better than they thought humans had the capability to do so.
Right.
They're moving faster than they thought people were able to, so they had to update. They had to update it so that like it could keep up with human capabilities.
And I think there's a hunger for that, right? Like for the people who have embraced VR, which is still admittedly a growing market. There's not as big of a market there as maybe the platform holders had hoped there would be at this point, but it is growing, and I think there are people who are ready for like, hey, I want to have like a real challenging game here, and this is that. It's a deep, involved game.
I like learning about development, and the most interesting thing about the game from your preview was the idea that it was someone else's idea that Harmonix then collaborated with and then brought them internal.
It's a little to offer some clarification there. I mean, we didn't have a lot of space to go into a lot of detail there, but basically there's a person on staff at Harmonix.
Oh, I see.
Who was working as an independent developer simultaneously on their own project, even as Alex was returning to some of the concepts that he had been enthusiastic about in Chroma.
Right.
Way back in like 2013 and 2014.
From the developers of Counter-Strike Go, which is very crazy.
Quickly, Chroma is the rhythm shooter.
It was like an arena-based rhythm shooter.
Right.
Okay.
That
they pulled back on after a beta, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. If that, I mean, maybe it didn't. I'm not even sure if it went past alpha, but people did play it. I think, played it, right? And so it was out there, but by Alex's own admission, it felt like it got a little bit away from the core joy that he was going for in a music shooter.
But it's like, there's something about music guns. Something about music guns I gotta get back to.
Like that's exactly the way he talked about it. And I think he kept musing about it, and he realized that he wanted it to be a pure experience of like, yes, I'm shooting, but he also said like, I don't really like real guns and violence, and he's not interested in doing that in his games. So he made a game that was like, okay, well, it's these futuristic laser pistols that you're shooting targets with. So you get the joy of what you described, Kyle, that sense of like pulling the trigger and hitting the target. But it's not about like killing dudes.
It's about killing songs.
Crushing them. And from there, it was sort of evolving towards something. And then he had this other guy on staff. I think his name is Ryan Chalinor. Apologies, I'm sure I'm getting the pronunciation wrong. But he was also at Harmonix, working on kind of a guns and music thing.
Gotcha.
They brought all that effort together, and now we get this game, Audica.
You know what's the most confusing thing about Harmonix, other than their last 10 years, is trying to wrap my mind around why they never made a PlayStation VR version of Amplitude. They have a game that would be great in VR. The studio that has spent the last 5 years or so like focused on VR.
Yeah.
It's a PlayStation exclusive. Sony's hungry for VR games.
Right.
How does that not...
You know what happened? Someone over there played Thumper, and they just went, damn it!
No. Damn it, our game is so much better. Oh, really?
Yeah, we don't need to get into all this.
Wow,
I like Thumper a lot.
interesting. Anyways, Audica.
I love all games.
It might come to PSVR, by the way. This might.
Oh, I'd hope so. Yeah,
They are shooting for it, but the only thing they have announced is that it'll be on HTC Vive and on Oculus Rift. They want to do Oculus Quest, the upcoming like standalone thing, and PSVR if they can make that happen.
Gotcha. Audica, very exciting. Harmonix. Way to go.
Way to go.
We love it.
The Capcom round of applause?
Absolutely. That was just a clip from a larger show called The Game Informer Show. You can find it on iTunes, Google Play, or GameInformer.com. We take the fun opportunities and exclusive information from Game Informer magazine and boil it into a show that airs every Thursday with exclusive cover story information, developer interviews, a lot of fun stuff. So come love games with us.